All right. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes to thank you for joining us and being here. We're really looking forward to today's coffee chat. And before we get into the details, if you've joined our coffee chats in the past, you've definitely heard this spiel before, but I just love to, for those of you who are new, because looking at the attendee list, we've got quite a few new people here today, but a little bit of background on me. I'm Robert Fowler. I'm the CCO of Catalyst Creative and our co-founder. And we are a community design agency focused on experiences using our proprietary method called the 7th Level Engagement Framework. And Catalyst started just over 7 years ago. We've been a fully remote team since day one. And if you've joined our calls in the past, we've talked about remote work and finance, PPP loans, SBA, the current climate of where we are now, and all types of things. So we invite you to check out our website where we've got actually a page that's going live, hopefully today, that'll have all of the resources in the past calls. They're also in our blog if you missed any of those, or you can shoot us an email, which is coffee@catalystcreative, no E at the end of creative.com, and we'll be sure to send you that link as soon as that's ready to go. So a couple of housekeeping items for those of you who are joining us from Zoom. There's a Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, so make sure that you put in some questions for me or our panelists today, and we'll be sure to get to those. If you're on the phone, you can email them to us at the coffee@Catalyst Creative email address, and we'll make sure to get to those. So before we get started, we just love for everyone, we always say to just take a couple of deep breaths, just sit back, settle in. This is just a casual conversation among friends. Actually, all the panelists today I consider really good friends, so we're super excited to have those. You know, these coffee chats came about because, you know, it's all over 2 months ago now. We were trying to figure out how we could sort of bring our community together. We've always been about live in-person events, starting from our base back in 7 years ago when we were doing our Catalyst and Creative Weeks. And 8 weeks ago, we were just like thinking to ourselves, how do we connect our group? How do we keep people engaged? How do we, you know, give people a break in the middle of the week to come together and just kind of learn and talk? And that's kind of how this was born. So we really appreciate you being here. And, you know, we did put out a survey where we were asking folks, you know, what are some issues that you would like to hear us talk about? We've got such a vast network of great experts and people that have been part of Catalyst's family for the last, you know, 7 years, that we wanted to really tap into that group. And this was an overwhelming response that this was something that you guys wanted to hear about. So we really wanted to talk about the importance of e-com and D2C brands because, you know, in 2019, consumers spent, you know, over $600 billion online with US merchants, which was up 14.5% from about 520 billion the prior year. And as we probably all know, that a lesson from 2020 that's essential for every business is that digital is really the new way. And the adoption of e-commerce is critical as a success factor for most businesses. And that really is for all sectors and all geographies. So the real reality is that brands who aren't keeping up or making changes to become more digital are probably going to be left behind. So this year will be the year that changed the trajectory of e-commerce, telemedicine, remote work. March 2020 was the first time in US history that consumers bought more groceries online than in store, and by a large margin. 22% more consumers shopped online for groceries in March of this year. I can tell you my mom in Gainesville, Georgia was shopping on Publix through their website, and I never thought that she would be the type to not be going to the store. So it's definitely happening. But as we get a bit more into our topic for today, I really can't wait to tell you a bit more about our three panelists. So first we have Audrey, who's the CEO of CO Beauty. Audrey's one of the smartest people I know. She's got a super distinguished education, a Yale undergrad and a Harvard MBA. She's got a proven track record as a retail executive with extensive experience in digital marketing, e-com, and CRM. I've been part of the CO family since day one because my dear friend and COVID shelter-in-place roommate, Gigi Howard, is the co-founder of CO Beauty. So Audrey, so glad to have you with us. Next, we have Lindsey Johnson, who's the co-founder and CEO of Weezie Towels, which is a modern luxury towels made easy. And she co-founded just over 2 years ago Weezie Towels after getting her MBA from Columbia. She's also an active angel investor in the consumer space. And finally, we have Chris Pomponi, the Senior Director of Business Development at Earnest Research. Earnest Research really helps businesses make better decisions through improved understanding of their competitors, customers, and industries. Chris has got an awesome proven track record for bringing in new technologies to market through strong sales and partnerships. In fact, one of his ventures was his first ventures was acquired by Cisco Foods back in 2013. So Chris is passionate about people. He understands the effectiveness of a healthy company culture, and I look forward to talking to him about that a bit today. So as you can see, we have a lot to learn from our panelists, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into a few questions for them, and they definitely want to hear from you as well, so make sure to add those to the Q&A sections. So the first question, and this may be a little bit different from our topic that you thought you were going to hear from today, is that we've talked a lot about people. We've talked about our teams, how everyone is doing. So really just want to kind of check in with all three of our panelists on how you're doing, how your teams are doing, and how you're all adjusting to remote work. Lindsey, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, happy to. So it has definitely been an adjustment over the past month or so. I will say that Weezie is fortunate in that most members of our corporate team have worked remote at some point or another in the company's year-and-a-half long history. So we have employees in multiple different cities. We were actually hoping to officially move everyone down to Georgia, split between two offices in Savannah and Atlanta when COVID-19 sort of took place. So that being said, the delay, we have had a delay to the move, but we definitely have had people who've dabbled with work from home before, and therefore we're not really seeing a huge impact to productivity. We've had to increase video conferences, so we do most of our meetings now by video, and I've definitely done or tried to kind of increase my transparency and communication with the team. So just kind of increasing touch bases and making sure that we're over communicating so that everyone feels in the loop. Where we have seen a little bit of a difficulty is that we do have an in-person operation that actually fulfills our orders. And so we definitely have seen a bit of a struggle there with the idea of kind of making sure that social distancing is in place and that folks feel comfortable and safe actually coming into a warehouse space. So I'd say the answer is a little bit different for the different parts of the team, but it's something that I would say we were probably more prepared for than most.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get a bit more into that I've got some questions about operations and logistics coming up. Audrey, what about you and the CO team? Audrey, you might be muted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
There you go.
Oh, okay, perfect. I was double muted. So yes, sorry. Yes, I have to say going into working from home, I was nervous just because I'm very much an office person and I enjoy that office interaction. And I was a little bit nervous about how productive I'm going to be and how productive my team is going to be. But we've really embraced this and know that it's important that we stay productive and keep our sales moving because we have such a aggressive plan for the year. And I have to say everyone has been incredibly productive. The interesting thing, there's just so many different modes of communication and everyone on my team has a different preference. There's some people that I Slack with all day long. Some people prefer the FaceTime call. Some people prefer the SMS messaging, and sometimes all three go off at once. So it's kind of funny to have so many modes of communication, but I really appreciate that everyone's just been in touch and trying to share ideas as if we were still in one place. So it's been really good. I think we do miss each other and do miss that camaraderie. And it will be interesting to see what happens when we are kind of more back to normal. I think we'll incorporate some sort of work from home. One thing we've been doing to keep spirits up is every other week doing the Zoom happy hour on a Friday at 5. And that is a chance for everyone to kind of reconnect on a little bit more social basis. And I find that works really well.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've been remote since day one, and we had our first team happy hour in that same way, I guess it was 2 Fridays ago. And just having the time where we weren't on an agenda, where we weren't like trying to like get to certain topics or, get through certain items and just kind of be able to talk. It was so nice. So I'm definitely on board with the Friday happy hours. Chris, what about you and your team?
Well, first off, thank you, Robert and the Catalyst team for having me and having the opportunity to share some ideas on the platform. But Yeah, I mean, look, we're fortunate. Everyone on the team is healthy. There's been no blip in our ability to provide, or deliver products to our clients while we're remote. I would say similar to Audrey's sentiment. I was a little weary kind of going into it. It's my first time kind of fully being remote. I do also enjoy the human interaction. And yeah, so there were some slight adjustments in the beginning, but our team has responded very well. And honestly, I mean, personally, I think we're even more productive, working remote. I mean, we do have a portion of our business of engineers that, we were able to borrow a lot of work from home practices. We have teams in Dublin and around the globe on the engineering team. So yeah, there's some process and tools that we were able to leverage, like Slack and other parts of their infrastructure. So lots of Zoom. Zoom happy hours are a way to touch base on a more personal level. But yeah, it's been very productive for us.
Awesome. That's great to hear. I know all of our teams will be excited to get back in person. So to kind of dive into the meat of the conversation, I'd love to get from Audrey and Lindsey, how have sales been impacted in the last 6 to 8 weeks by COVID?
Sure. So for CO Beauty, the first 2 weeks of quarantine were definitely tough. I think everybody was really focused on essentials and stocking up on those things. But once everyone felt like they had enough toilet paper and food and all the basics, I think everybody realized that I still want to take time to self-care and to maintain my beauty routine. And I can't get to my esthetician or to my dermatologist. So they started churning for any at-home solution to help them look and feel their best. So over the last 4 weeks, our sales have basically more than doubled. And it's been amazing to see that, and to see that we can help customers look and feel their best while they can't maybe do other things. A big part of our base, probably enjoys Botox or other injectables as a way to look kind of the way they want to look, and they can't get to their doctors right now. And we offer an at-home solution to that. And so I'm glad that we can provide that for our customers. And so now it's just about making sure that we continue staying in touch with this new customer base and figuring out how we can get them to continue buying our products even when we're back to a more normal life of being able to go and see who we used to see.
Yeah. Lindsey, what about you?
Yeah, I would say our story is very similar. The first few weeks were definitely, really, really tough, and we saw sales decline very dramatically. I think that obviously people's, people were concentrating elsewhere, which makes total sense. And I think that we weren't top of mind. You're not necessarily thinking about replacing your towels or buying luxury towels when we were consuming the news that we were consuming at that time. That being said, I think that as our customer base has sort of adjusted to the new normal and sort of accepted the fact that they will be spending considerable amount of time at home, that has definitely benefited us. So I think being in the home category has been really helpful, because people are kind of like now evaluating the space that they're in and looking at it probably more closely than they were before the pandemic. So our sales has definitely picked back up. We're also a very giftable product, so we do offer customization, and Mother's Day has definitely helped us as well. So I would say we've turned the corner, it seems, in sales, but I share Audrey's sentiment that it's just such an uncertain time, and we don't know how long this is going to last. I think if the economy continues to spiral and it doesn't recover over the next couple of months, then we could see people to start to question whether or not they're going to open their wallets for things that are certainly not essential, which would be a product that we provide. So I'm curious to see what happens in the months to come, for sure.
Yeah. Well, it was almost like this was planned, because I want to switch it over to Chris now. And you can actually, Allie, if you want to advance, there's a slide that Chris provided. And Chris, maybe you can talk us just through some of the data points of like the trends that you guys have seen over the last couple of weeks in terms of like home improvement, home furnishings, beauty, as it relates to maybe Audrey and Lindsey's business.
Yeah, absolutely. Given we are an insights provider, and luckily for this conversation, our data is uniquely suited to provide insight into the impact COVID-19 is having on the consumer economy. So just to kind of situate ourselves, Earnest Research, we provide, insights derived from consumer data. So consumer transaction data, mobile geolocation data, which would be like foot traffic data. We also provide insight on web data, web traffic data as well. And so the slide that we have prepared today is looking at kind of aggregate consumer activity. So the panel and the insight that this insight is derived from is consumer wallets. So we have a panel of about 6 million de-identified US consumers that is kind of they're geographically diverse and really representative to the kind of a proxy of the US consumer. So what we did here is we plugged into all of those US consumers, looked at all of their spend across debit, credit, and their bank activity, and looked at that spend across all consumer categories. So that's from grocery, beauty, fitness, everything you can think of on the consumer side. Roll that up into an aggregation, and you can see the trend week ending kind of March 11th or into March 18th, where you really start to see the spike of the pandemic stockpiling behavior of groceries. And actually, let me kind of reset here. So on the left, on the kind of y-axis, weekly year-over-year growth, and then the axis being week, we're essentially comparing this calendar week of 2020 to that same calendar week in 2019. And so, March 18th, as I'm sure everyone was running out, stockpiling, groceries, toilet paper, you see that growth in consumer activity and spend. And then you see a really, steep consumer depression in spend. And I think at its lowest point, deceleration about 20% year over year at that period. But hot off the press, we have data that came in last night, and for the first time in the last week, which ended April 22nd, we have data that has about a week lag. So data through last Wednesday, for the first time, we see a positive swing in consumer spend. And just to give some more context, over the past 6 weeks, about a third of kind of consumer growth has been attributed to grocery and general merchandising spend. So spend at Target, Walmart, and then Publix and any other regional or national grocer and even online grocery. But in this last week, we saw a pretty meaningful shift where home became the second largest category, representing about 30% of the total growth. About 50% year-over-year growth in the home category. So, very meaningful. And if we even double click into, home and look at home improvement, we're seeing 70% year-over-year growth of the home improvement subcategory, which includes, hardware, building supplies, nurseries, paint companies. So, very meaningful growth. It's springtime, gardening is popular. So even during the busy season, to see that rate of growth is very meaningful, very interesting.
Awesome.
And if you want to jump to the next slide, I can go kind of get into kind of beauty and home, as well. And so, obviously with the panelists, I wanted to be, wanted to provide some data on beauty and home. So within the panel, we're able to, break out categories, subcategories. We can look at the individual merchants that, for example, for beauty, Sephora, Ulta, and direct to consumer, beauty boxes that would roll up into that category. But, for beauty, for the, fifth consecutive week, we saw elevated spend growth up 92%. And this is online. So we're looking at the online channel, up from 42% in the prior week. So pretty meaningful jumps. And then obviously, I spoke about home furnishing and home improvement, also seeing massive growth across the online channel.
Amazing. Yeah, with all this growth, Audrey and Lindsey, I'm curious, what forms of marketing are getting the best response right now? Is it paid ads, email campaigns, by driving sales? Where are you guys seeing your biggest growth coming from?
So for CO Beauty, Facebook advertising has been working incredibly well. Over the last few weeks, CPMs have come down, and we're able to achieve much better customer acquisition costs as a result. There's so many industries that are not advertising right now because they're not in business. And so that's kind of opened up almost like, more audience for us to test into. And audiences that didn't perform that well for us in the past, that maybe were too broad, just kind of a general beauty audience or a general spa audience, all of a sudden is resonating with our customers. So we've been able to really take advantage of this shift in CPMs and costs, and we're able to drive a lot of customers to our site, which then in turn fuels the pool that we can remarket to, how many people are signing up for our email lists and our SMS lists. So it all feeds each other, and it always has, but it's even kind of more intense now just because there's so many more people coming to the site. And, what we've done with our messaging is that we really have been focusing on the at-home messaging and alternative to injectable messaging, because that's what customers are looking for now and are resonating with. And it's tricky because you don't want to be too blatant about you're stuck at home. You want to do it in a much more gentle way, in a way that won't offend people or make them feel, even more sad about being in quarantine. So it's been a really fine balance of explaining who we are and what we can do for them without kind of taking too much advantage. And so, we're continuing to invest in Facebook, and it's nice to see us getting better returns from there.
Absolutely. Lindsey, what about you?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that as well. I think given that our business is only, 18 months old, our marketing mix is pretty immature in that we do rely on a channel like Facebook pretty heavily. This was going to be the year that we expanded into direct mail and out of home and kind of these new exciting channels we were going to test into. And obviously, with the current environment, it's not a great environment for testing for a variety of reasons, especially in those categories. So we have been in looking at Facebook or relying on Facebook, I'd say more than we'd anticipated this year. But that being said, we are seeing the return, and so we have been able to. We've been a little bit more conservative with our targets for return on ad spend and customer acquisition costs than we have in the past, just because we don't know how long this is going to last. But even with those kind of more with a higher standard, we are seeing the return. So we have been able to sort of increase spend there. And it's the same story that Audrey said. It's, because it's less competitive. All of the stores that are, brick and mortar aren't advertising right now, and in the hospitality space, et cetera. So we've been able to take advantage of the lower CPMs and scale our spend pretty aggressively over the past couple of months. Past couple of weeks. In addition to that, email has been really important to us. So we have a lot of people, on our email list who've kind of been silently watching the brand and kind of following the brand, but have never actually purchased. We've seen a lot of those people come to the table over the past couple of weeks through very strategic email campaigns, particularly related to what's going on in the current environment.
Awesome.
I'll also add that we've been experimenting with different types of promotions because we do know that customers are looking for good pricing right now because everybody is a little bit nervous about paychecks. So we've been experimenting with different type of offers. Last week, we ran an offer on our subscription program. So we gave people X% off if they commit to 3 subscriptions. And the week before, we ran a double points offer for our loyalty members. So it's a good time to test different types of ways to give your customer a discount, just to kind of help them out during this uncertain time.
Yeah. And I think, while we're talking, specifically about home and beauty here, I really think that any company that has an offering that, can sell right now via digital channels can really be a benefit to these insights from education to other online retailers. So I definitely just wanted to make sure to point that out as well. And, I think that sort of leads into my next question is how you guys are messaging to customers with the COVID sensitivity. Data shows that in Q1 of 2020, the average order value or AOV for those of us in this space was just over $112, and the average discount rate was 22%. And then, it even talks about mid-March that the average discount rates in the US surged to like 34%, which is, 3 points higher than the discounted rates that people were looking at on Cyber Monday. So I'm just curious how are you guys messaging obviously no one would really respond well to like, we're having a sale because of COVID. So I'm curious what forms of sales, obviously Mother's Day coming up is for anyone in e-com is a very sort of known and easy way to message a sale. But, how have you guys seen that, what sales strategies have been effective in messaging during these times? Lindsey, you want to start?
Yeah, happy to. So we kind of, when we founded the business, you deliberately set pricing with the anticipation of not really doing many sales. So we actually only have one big annual sale kind of on our anniversary, our birthday every year, which is in October. Obviously, we've been kind of debating back and forth internally whether or not it makes sense to introduce a sale during this time. So to test the waters with that, we did offer a free shipping promotion, which we don't have free shipping on all types of orders. You have to qualify through your basket size. So we did offer free shipping for a couple of weeks and simultaneously ran that with a donation program that we would basically send 10% of all of our proceeds or profits to Feeding America. So the way that we sort of approached it was, we're going to offer free shipping right now because one, at that time, we couldn't really guarantee shipping times. We didn't really know what was going to be going on with our fulfillment center, and it could honestly have closed at any time. And we also were seeing delays in the postal service. So we wanted to basically say, look, shipping's on us because we can't deliver the service that we're used to delivering you. And then simultaneously to that, your dollar is going to be, actually donated to a cause that we felt strongly about, which is Feeding America, which was helping food banks across the country that were the most in need at the time. So that was something that we did to sort of soften the blow of, Corona. But it was a first for us, and we're still evaluating how we want to proceed going forward. There definitely is a situation where we might look to do some sort of promotion, depending on how long this lasts. I think in terms of messaging, not necessarily related to sales, what we've done is really just listen to our customers about, how they want to hear from us and what they want to hear from us right now. So I think, it's everyone's very, sensitive to what's going on, and we wanted to show empathy, but we wanted to also be providing content that would be useful for them. So we actually asked our customer base, what do you want to hear from us, and how often do you want to hear from us right now? So we sent out a poll and had an extremely high response rate, where people were looking to hear from us, tips on how to clean, launder their bath towels or clean their homes, or tips on working from home, or tips on workouts from home, or, recipes we liked, and things that weren't even related to what we're actually selling, but they looked to us to sort of educate them on how we're coping in this environment. So we've sort of switched up our content plan around this, which I think is really interesting, that try to think more broadly about what your customer might want to hear from you. And it could be something that is totally unrelated to what you sell or provide, because I think people are, they're itching to kind of hear more from the brands that they love.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that sort of touched on Jessica's question in the Q&As of, building community with potential customers, not offering just sort of the one thing, not all of your expertise just coming from towels. So I think that's really great. Audrey, did you have anything to add?
We haven't switched up our messaging too much. In our emails, we're communicating just different ways on how to use our product and make it easy for them to incorporate it into their routine. Our social media is a mix of product education and funny little memes, and trying to kind of tap into kind of what everyone is talking about. So we've we're just continuing to push this at-home messaging, which is working well for us. And in terms of promotions, I'm trying not to be too promotional, have maybe one a month that's a big one, but then experimenting with smaller ones that are less like big discounts, but just different ways for customers to trial our product, perhaps subscribe to it, which is something that's really important to us.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious, what your impacts on your supply chain have been. I know, Lindsey, you had mentioned, having the social distancing and the warehouses and things like that. But for both of you, have your are the warehouses functional? Have they been able to keep up with the demands of your current sales? And are you looking at, I think we're kind of seeing from some of the trends and reports that we may be over a little bit of the hump, but did you have any backup plans in case your fulfillment centers had to shut down?
So my fulfillment, we use a 3PL out on Long Island, and they have definitely been very careful about how they're doing all the cleaning and keeping people distanced. And so we've been in touch with them on a regular basis to make sure that they're doing, what they need to do to keep their workers safe. And as a result, they have had fewer staff, and so it has taken longer to get our products out. So we've put notices on our site and in our order confirmation emails to let people know that it may take longer to get their orders. And most people have been understanding. We haven't had too many complaints about it. Our 3PL has a few facilities around the country, so we sent about a month's worth of product over to a West Coast facility, thinking just in case the one in Long Island shuts down, we would at least have some supply out on the West Coast. Thankfully, this hasn't happened, but it was definitely, I remember waking up one night in the middle of the night saying, oh my God, what if my warehouse shuts down? The next day, quickly trying to figure out what to do. But it's, knock on wood, everything's been okay, but it's, definitely kind of touch and go for a while, trying to see what was going to happen. So.
For sure. Lindsey, what about you?
Yeah, so our fulfillment is a little bit different in that we actually have to self-fulfill because we do customization on our products. So that's actually something we do in-house. So we manage it ourselves. So we have both a 3PL, which helps fulfill the non-custom orders, and then we do have our own warehouse where we do the customization and ship the customized orders, which is about 70% of our volume. So we definitely have seen the impact there, and that we've had to, totally change the way that we're fulfilling in terms of, keeping people safe and healthy. But also because of the CARES Act, which was passed, we do have a substantial portion of our employee base, which needs to be home with their children and care for their children and can do so with the federal relief that's been provided. So our number of employees has decreased pretty substantially, which has, made it a little bit difficult for us to sort of keep up with the demand, just because we're understaffed, quite frankly, and we can't necessarily hire new folks because training them on what we do from 6 feet apart would be, near impossible. So we have had to kind of get creative in terms of making sure that productivity stays the same with many people less than we're used to working with, which has been difficult. But it is something that I think, similar to what Audrey said, is that customers are now more than ever being more understanding, and we are trying to message proactively when we do see that there'll be a delay in an order. It is going to be quite difficult to kind of message that and massage that message going into something like Mother's Day, because I think that is important that we hit, our promised date for delivery, and we're hopeful that we can do it. But that's definitely been difficult. And even going back to our supplier, is in Portugal, and we saw our factory shut down for several weeks and not knowing when they were going to be opening back up, and therefore able to ship us our product and produce more product. So even from an inventory perspective, it's been also quite difficult to manage. Yeah.
One of the stats that I was reading that I thought was so interesting is that, that global e-commerce cart abandon rates for mobile devices was 88% in Q1 of this year. And I'm curious, a lot of people are home, a lot of people have been furloughed or laid off. So that, I know myself, I'm, been kind of looking, as you say, what home improvement things, do I need new rugs? Do I need new bed sheets, whatever? So how are you guys, and maybe Chris, you can provide some insight as well as maybe what are some ways that you guys are combating sort of that, such a high, cart abandonment rate, and what sort of marketing tools do you guys use to follow up with those people?
So, I would say ours is a little bit of a different flavor, going B2B. But, I think, one thing that we've done is we spun up, we've spun up a project, a product in which will be provided complimentary access, to retailers, governments, to get a sense of, the impact of, of COVID. We understand it's a challenging time, and that, And this COVID tracker product actually just like gives them insight into the consumer economy. So, we've seen, clients, leverage that tool on an ongoing basis. And
that's been helpful for sure. Yeah. Chris was showing me some of the insights that they can do, and it's been awesome. What about for you, Lindsey or Audrey? How have you guys been helping and like reaching out and following up with those people?
So we have a post-demand and cart sort of email strategy. So we definitely follow up with folks about their demand and cart, and then we do actually provide after a certain number of days, and once they've received one email, we'll send them some sort of offer depending on what's in their cart to kind of encourage them to get over the finish line. We are exploring now doing something very similar via SMS. I know that Audrey mentioned SMS. It's not something that we currently do, but we are, I do think that that's a very viable channel for us marketing-wise. And it could be something that is quick, and easy for people who are looking for convenience right now to follow up that way. So we will kind of do offers and get proactive about following up with people who are leaving their carts behind.
Yeah, absolutely. One question too, Catalyst, we do work with a lot of, D2C brands and consumer brands. And I'm curious, which vendors and partners are you guys leaning on the most right now, especially when you're working with us, Lindsey, in your case, maybe more of a skeleton team. So how are you guys utilizing your vendors and partners?
So
go ahead.
I was going to say, it's been an interesting time because I think that some vendors that we used to rely on, we honestly just, looking at the uncertainty of the environment, couldn't necessarily afford to continue to use, or found them as sort of like a nice to have, not a need to have. So we've had to sort of part ways with some vendors that weren't, willing to work with us on pricing. But I will say on the marketing side, working super closely with our marketing teams, as right now, I think, talking about the cost of acquisition, Facebook and Google and search in general, having folks who are experts in those fields and kind of really staying in very close contact with them throughout the day even. So where we might kind of have a check-in every other day or have a weekly check-in or whatever it is, we're talking, basically hour by hour as things change and dynamics change on those marketing channels. So that's been something that I think has been really important to have vendors in place that you can trust and rely on and kind of can ebb and flow with you as the environment seems to be changing constantly.
Yeah, for SEO, we've also been in daily touch with our digital marketing agency because it's, every day kind of making decisions about, are we willing to push the budget further? Can we push down the CPA more? So it's constantly adjusting to the situation. And that's been very helpful. And I definitely appreciate the fact that they don't mind hearing from us pretty much every day. They kind of now know to proactively reach to us first if there's anything kind of odd with CPAs or with return on ad spend. Now, we've also been pushing our PR agency to continue, finding good placements for us because there are a lot of articles right now about how to take care of yourself at home, and our product makes a really good fit for those articles. So we are continuing to push them to, figure out where they can slot us in. And I reach out to them quite often to run messaging by them to make sure that we are being appropriate in our messaging, that we, never come across as tone deaf in any way. So it's good to have someone to bounce those ideas off of. So we're continuing to work with them as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of times, we used to look at marketing budgets in terms of like 3, 6 months, 9 months out. It sounds like everyone is sort of having to shift those, and it's sort of like a 2-week out thing. When you're looking at forecasts, when you're looking at budgets, you're kind of having to make pivots much sooner. And I don't know if you guys, it sounds like you've both seen that as well. There's one question that we had, a couple of questions that are coming in that I just wanted to make sure that we get to. Blair has asked, do you engage with new customers who are purchasing during this time differently post-purchase? If so, how? I don't know who
We
wants
actually have been, so we did something, and granted we are a smaller business, and really focused on kind of building that community and making sure that everyone that's coming in as sort of an early adopter in this first couple of years is staying a lifetime customer. So we've kind of erred on the side of, over communication and kind of making sure that community is intact. So one thing we've done is basically all the customers that we saw were first time customers coming in that back half of March when things were really uncertain, and kind of when we saw those sales really, really drop, we wrote them handwritten thank you notes, actually saying, thank you so much for taking a chance on us during this time when we know things are uncertain. We so appreciate you, and we hope that you can, stay a customer for life and spread the word about Weezie, et cetera, et cetera. So we have been kind of going above and beyond to make sure that the first-time customers who are coming in the door right now are customers that will stay with us for a long time, or at least kind of continue to spread the word about us.
Yeah. Another question, and I love this so much that came through because I have a lot of friends who are in the creative field and photographers. And the question is, I'm a photographer / director based in New York City, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on photographers, videographers reaching out to see if brands want to shoot new content. Are you looking to create new content, or are you trying to repurpose what you have? And this is something that we've sort of been, curious about at Catalyst is so many products. I know a lot of companies had new products slated to be released this year. How are you guys handling your content at this point? Are you starting to run dry? Are you repurposing, or are you guys trying to find creative ways to shoot content?
So for CEO Beauty, we do a photo shoot probably every 2 to 3 months, just because as a beauty company, you do need so much content between emails and social media. So we did a photo shoot probably the last week before quarantine started. So we have enough content to take us through June, but we're starting to talk right now about what are we going to do, because I think it's going to be a few weeks before we're able to, gather in a large group. So we're having conversations with our creative agency on that. And, it may be photographers coming up with little shoots in their home, or us reaching out to influencers who put out great content for us and asking them for something a little bit more photo shoot like. And so I think we're going to have to get more creative and be okay with a more kind of UGC feel to the content versus something that's very stylized, very, like magazine ready, which is kind of what we've been more, and kind of downgrade a little bit. But I think that's what customers are actually wanting to see, kind of more real life, real people. And so I think we're going to have to figure out how to do that. Hopefully this means we'll save a little money because photo shoots are expensive. So I'm hoping we can figure out a more cost efficient way to create content. But we'll certainly repurpose. We have a lot of great images, and what we posted 6 months ago, I think if we switch up the format of the email, for example, and put new text, it will feel new.
Yeah, for sure. Well, these have all been amazing questions, and I'm so appreciative of the insight that you gave. It's very clear you're all super busy people with a lot on your plates. Lindsey, I know you have a 6-week-old that was born right in the middle of all this, and you're running a business and moving, and so we're just super grateful. I'd love if you guys could each go through and just maybe if there's one little piece of advice that you would love to give to the people that have joined the call. It can be a little piece of advice based on maybe something that you're doing each day to stay connected to your teams. Maybe it could be something that something that we wanted to touch on this call that you didn't get to mention. Just any little piece of advice. Chris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, so, given we're, in a pandemic, there's really no point of reference. And as you guys mentioned before, the forecasting is a much more limited, scope, right? Week to week rather than quarter by quarter. So what we're hearing from clients is the need for kind of real-time insights. And that's being, it's important as ever. And so we're seeing clients leverage, kind of our data to benchmark their performance to their competitors, who's winning, who's losing, how do they stack up, how's their e-commerce channel compare, being able to, they're concerned about monitoring their customer share of wallet, or kind of those dollars shifting across their competitors, during the shutdown and eventually the recovery. And also, you know, the questions, you know, be strategic, you know, for folks that have retail. I know we're talking a lot about direct to consumer, but from a geographic standpoint, you know, when are stores opening? You know, where should we open? Cities and states may be, you know, quote unquote, officially reopened, but it's good to have an understanding of how consumers are responding. So I think the need for data right now, we're seeing it, you know, as important as ever.
Awesome. I love that. Lindsey?
I think I touched on this a little bit already, but I think it's so important to just ask your customers what they want from you. I think don't be afraid to. I think a lot of the questions we got from the audience during this panel was kind of how are we thinking about community and how are you messaging things? How are we, rethinking about content and all of that good stuff. And I think for us, we just haven't been afraid to leverage our customer base because people will tell you what they want to see. And I know it sounds a little bit rudimentary, but I think just being as close as possible to your customers right now is more important now than it has ever been, especially when times are changing day by day. So I think, the first piece of advice is just stay close to your customer, listen to what they want. Don't be afraid to pick up a phone or send an email or a survey or kind of do a virtual Zoom with them. And the second thing I would say is just take it day by day. So it's really hard to plan for the future right now, and that's okay. And just kind of making sure that you're kind of getting comfortable with that uncertainty of what's to come. And so just kind of trying to take it day by day and stay flexible and nimble with your planning because things, as we've learned this year, often don't go according to plan, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Audrey?
Lindsey, I love everything you just said, so thank you for that. I would say my tidbit is don't be afraid to test right now. What may not have worked 6 months ago may work now, whether that be creative messaging, the testing that you're doing in Facebook and Google AdWords, because kind of we're in such a different time and such a different mindset that it's okay to experiment and try things that maybe didn't work in the past. That's what we're doing, and we're seeing some success with that. And it's always important to be testing and learning.
For sure. My little tidbit would be, and I say this at the end of every call, is just to make sure that everyone is taking care of yourself, your teams, your loved ones, your family, your friends, giving yourself a little bit of grace and showing yourself some gratitude. It's not an easy time, but we're all in this together. And if there's anything that we at Catalyst can do to support any of you who are on the call or listening to this recording later, we're here for you. Next week, we have an awesome group that will be joining us. It's all about foundations and nonprofits. So please be sure to tune in for that. And as we always say, your week is now half over. And thank you so much to Audrey, Lindsey, and Chris. This was one of my favorite calls that we've done and super informative, I think. And we really are grateful to all of you. And we wish you the best. And we'll be sending a follow-up email with some of the resources that Chris mentioned, as well as possibly a little surprise from CO. So keep in touch, and we'll look forward to speaking with you guys next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.